CNN Breaking News.
Well, we begin with a developing story, breaking news that we're just getting of the arrest of two individuals in Amsterdam shortly after they arrived on a flight from the United States. Brian Todd is working this story for us. Brian, what are we hearing? What are we learning?
Wolf, an official at Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam confirms to us that two men were arrested there today after they received a request from the National Detective Department. They say an investigation is ongoing. They're not giving us any additional details. What we know from an ABC News report is that two men were taken off a Chicago to Amsterdam flight at that airport, charged by Dutch police with, quote, preparation of a terrorist attack. That's ABC News citing law enforcement sources in the United States. Apparently, at least one of them was at least flagged for some bulky clothing, and his baggage was checked in Birmingham, Alabama, where he then flew from there to Chicago. And they, I guess, took a further look at him. And apparently he checked luggage on a flight from Chicago to Washington Dulles with connections to Dubai and then Yemen. This is according to ABC News, but he didn't board that flight himself. Instead, he and another man boarded a flight from Chicago to Amsterdam. Indications of a possible dry run. And again, you know, some of their baggage was a little bit questionable, but no traces of explosives were found in these bags, according to this ABC News report. So
apparently they found a cell phone taped to a Pepto-Bismol bottle, 3 cell phones taped together, several watches taped together, a box cutter, and 3 large knives in the checked luggage.
In the checked luggage, that's right. Now, again, he had some bulky clothing himself, which flagged them. But again, they checked all of it out. No traces of explosives, but they wanted to keep an eye on him. This is according to ABC News. They let him go to Chicago. They watched him check that baggage through to Washington Dulles with flights, according to ABC, to then Yemen and Dubai. But he didn't get on that flight, again, raising suspicions there that they may be doing a dry run or something like that. Again, we're going to get more details later on this.
And they named these two individuals, the ABC report of individuals from Detroit, Michigan, saying that one of them at least was from Yemen originally. Let's bring in Tom Fuentes right now and Fran Townsend, our CNN national security contributors. Tom, you're a former assistant director of the FBI. When you hear the initial sketchy information we're getting right now, what goes through your mind?
Well, Wolf, it sounds like quite an unusual story. The idea that it would be a dry run seems to me to be a little bit silly because they don't actually have explosives. So the fact that it would not be detected as contraband entering the cargo area of an aircraft would certainly, stand. There's no reason to ban Pepto-Bismol from being put on airplanes. So the other idea that they could separate from their own luggage and take a different flight seems a little bit unusual also, since they have no trouble recruiting suicide bombers. Why would you need to do that? Why not have someone check their own luggage, and if they are intent on suicide, go ahead and let it detonate? So it just seems to be rather almost a futile exercise on their part.
Fran, let me bring Fran Townsend into this discussion. Fran, it does sound pretty strange to me that someone can board a flight even though that person's luggage is on another flight, and that other flight takes off with all that suspicious luggage. What's going on here?
Well, Wolf, the interesting thing is if you look at the ABC report, it appears as though they realized, the screening folks realized that he didn't get on the plane with the suspicious luggage. He'd sent that on a separate plane. If that's the case, and they then pulled that plane back with the suspicious luggage on it, but not the passenger who checked it, the system actually worked like it was supposed to. That shouldn't happen. They picked it up, and they got that suspicious bag back off that plane that was scheduled to go to Washington and then on to the Middle East. The other interesting thing is our understanding from the ABC report is that they was carrying several $1,000s in cash. Not sure why that wasn't picked up in the screening process. I mean, that's another key. Tom's quite right, though. I mean, normally we see al-Qaeda operatives involved in suicide missions. This suggests this wasn't a suicide mission itself, but it may have been, just as Tom suggests, a dry run. And so we ought to be pleased that authorities at least picked this up, but I suspect that we'll get more facts and more clarity on this as time goes on.
Brian Todd is getting some more information. What else are you getting, Brian?
Just a key detail to know from this ABC News report, Wolf, that as Fran mentioned, when they learned apparently that he was not on that plane to Dubai and Yemen, they ordered the plane that was going there with his luggage to return to the gate at Washington Dulles. That plane either didn't take off or didn't get very far. It got back to the airport at Dulles very quickly, where they, I guess, they took those bags off and screened them further, found no traces of explosives at any time. But it's important to note that they didn't let that bag get over to Yemen and Dubai.
It didn't go anywhere except to law enforcement authorities. Tom Fuentes, it sounds a little bit risky, though, if you're suspicious of two individuals and you check them, you still let them go on a flight to Amsterdam from Detroit. Does that sound normal to you, even if you're suspicious of these individuals, to let them board this kind of plane?
That would be true, Wolf, but I'm just not sure what the suspicion was, or to what degree they had that they could have prevented them from flying, or ordered them to have secondary checks. So I'm not sure the term that they were deemed suspicious.
I meant to say Chicago to Amsterdam, not from Detroit. The individuals, apparently, at least one of them was from Detroit, but Chicago to Amsterdam. The only thing I can imagine, Tom, is this. Is maybe they wanted to see where these individuals were going, to watch them and see if there was anything that they should follow up on.
I don't think so, since they wanted to go ahead and take them into custody when they arrived there. So I think that it's a little bit unusual. Exactly, again, what was the suspicion in the first place before they boarded and allowed that flight to leave? They might have become more suspicious once that plane was airborne, and then realized that maybe they had second thoughts about it, and to go ahead and have them go through additional screening upon arrival.
There are always U.S. Marshals, Fran, correct me if I'm wrong, on these international flights. This is a United flight from Chicago to Amsterdam. I assume those U.S. Marshals on that kind of a flight would be watching these suspicious individuals while on board.
Certainly, Wolf, if there were U.S. Marshals on that plane, they would have been tipped to pay special attention to the individuals that authorities thought were suspicious. One can only presume, Wolf, they let them board that flight and let that flight take off because they didn't have a basis to deny them boarding and take them into custody at the time that these individuals got on the flight. It may be once they realized that they had checked the bags on a different plane with suspicious material in it, that gave them the basis to ask the Amsterdam authorities to take them into custody when the plane landed.
Because, Fran, whenever you find individuals whose checked luggage includes box cutters and knives and cell phones taped together, Pepto-Bismol, whatever else is in there, that raises all sorts of alarm bells.
Absolutely, but probably they didn't have anything as I said, at the time of boarding that would have been classified as contraband, prohibited materials that might have given them a basis to deny them boarding. Once they realized that there were these suspicious materials, though, it may have given them the basis to take them into custody later.
All right, we'll follow up on this story and get more information. Once again, two individuals apparently arrested on terror-related charges in Amsterdam after they flew from Chicago to Amsterdam on a United flight. We'll get more information. Share it with our viewers. Stand by.